Here's an interview from one of our past shows on Rock and Metal Revival. If you're interested in hearing full shows, go to our Facebook page and check out our list of affiliates for times and places where you can hear Rock and Metal Revival. Right there is Megadeth with Peace Sells, right here on Rock and Metal Revival. And we want to welcome back to Rock and Metal Revival our friend, Megadeth bassist Dave Ellefson. How are you doing today, Dave?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Good to be chatting with you, and especially during this time. It's good to just be connected with everybody.
It really is. It's good to hear from you. And Dave, the last time we talked, you were out on your Bassery tour, and I thought which was an incredible experience for the fans. How did you feel about that whole experience?
I felt the same way. You know, I've done a handful, quite a few actually, like clinics, as they used to call them, when they were in the music stores, and usually they were sponsored by, you know, Jackson Guitars or Harkey Amplifiers. You know, it's sort of a partnership with a buy-in of product into a store, and if you buy enough product, you get the big prize of having the rock star himself come into the store and do a clinic kind of thing. You know, those were always a little uncomfortable and somewhat clinical feeling, because you're in a store. Obviously, the store has to shut down for a bit, or at least modify their traffic flow, because they're trying to sell product and sell guitars and, you know, get musicians in there, and you know, sometimes like over the PA it'd be like drumsticks on aisle 5, you know, when you're right in the middle of trying to do a clinic. So they had their challenges, you know. So our whole concept was to take that sort of that mindset, but let's take it into a club, let's take it into a proper concert venue, have an opening band or two, and then that allowed me to have a backing band behind me, because I don't really enjoy standing up there playing along to like a MP3 or a laptop or something. And I did a little bit of that, of course, in some of the Bass Story stuff. But as Bass Story continued to evolve, and I took it around the world, and I went to South America and Europe and everything with it, it was fun to actually have a band there, you know, and sort of build a band right in front of an audience, and get into sort of the kind of some of the inner workings and some of the mechanics of how musicians work off of each other and how we play together.
Well, you know, Dave, one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about today was the Ellefson Youth Music Foundation and the Schools Out initiative. Can you explain to our listeners about how that project gets started? Because that is so cool.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. We started the David-Ellefson Youth Music Foundation back in October 2018, and the mayor and the good people of my hometown of Jackson, Minnesota, were kind enough to deem and proclamate October 9th, now and forever, David Ellefson Day in Jackson, Minnesota.
Very cool.
And yeah, so my thought was, look, around that, this is a perfect platform. You know, let's do more than just have a parade for me. How do we create something that can be lasting and that can continue to give music back to the people? And one of the things we found is that, you know, the music programs, of course, in public schools often take a hit, and we hear about them in the big cities. We don't necessarily hear about them in some of the more rural areas. And while the farming community has been prosperous, and I got to grow up and have a really good life with the prosperity of farming in the Midwest, it doesn't mean that the school music programs don't take a hit. And so we designed the Youth Foundation to be, in particular, our focus is on continuing to bolster music programs in the more rural areas. Now, ironically, you know, Megadeth had just won our first Grammy in 2017 for the song Dystopia. And the Recording Academy, had started a new pillar to their program called the Grammy Music Education Coalition. So they quickly pulled us into their coalition. And so we, inside of the Grammy Music Education Coalition, we actually support the rural areas where they spend a lot of their other focuses in some of the bigger cities and the inner city music programs. So now we're part of a much bigger coalition, which is just terrific. You know, the bandwidth is really wide for that. And so obviously fast forward into March, you know, 2 months ago, COVID-19 is spreading around the world. Schools are closing nationwide, now worldwide. And we came up with the idea that we call Schools Out, and it is a way for us to give free music lessons to students all around the world now, via the internet, of course, and as a way to just continue to bolster music programs and keep instruments in the hands of the kids who are now out of school and can't even go to school and participate in any sort of school music programs.
Well, that's so cool because I grew up in Wisconsin, and I know you grew up in Minnesota, and as a young musician, you get to get a lesson from your favorite rock star in the form of their living room is kind of crazy to me because, like, when I was a kid, the closest I got to my favorite rock stars is when I got Circus Magazine or Hit Parader. You know what I'm saying? I mean, times have really changed.
Dude, you and me lived the same life, man. I was the same way. I mean, you go down to the local drugstore or the grocery store, and it was the same thing. And then again, I didn't even live close enough to Minneapolis or anything to even hear like my favorite rock bands on radio stations. I would only hear it when I drove to Minneapolis for a concert or something. And you're right. I mean, look, at Angus Young or Geddy Lee or Gene Simmons given free lessons, I mean, my gosh, I was signed up immediately. So, and that's, you bring up a good point. Obviously, look, I'm just one little dude with a bass. So, I mean, we've got over 1,000 people that have signed up for this thing all around the world. And so, we tried to cap it at age 18 and under. Because I did get some people, who are in their 50s going, "Hey, can I apply?" And part of me, I was like, "Well, I guess if you're doing your MBA or your doctorate program, technically you're a student." So we had to cap it at 18 and under. But I hit up a bunch of my friends, both current and former Megadeth members, Nita Strauss from Alice Cooper's band, Bumblefoot, former Guns N' Roses. And just all kinds of friends in the community. And I just said, "Hey, would you be willing to donate, an hour or so of your time to give a couple lessons to these kids that are out of school?" And everybody unanimously jumped in and said yes. And then we started this webathon. It's called Oh Say Can You Stream. It was our fundraiser webathon. Which for guys like you and me, we probably remember, of course, the Jerry Lewis telethon, where he'd stay up all weekend raising money for muscular dystrophy. So it was the same kind of thing, and it was just to bring attention to it. It did have a fundraising component, and all of our stuff for the foundation can be found over at EllefsonYouthMusicFoundation.org. We do have a fundraiser event going on. There's a little donate button over there. And we do also have an eBay auction. We just cycled through the first round of items. We had a guitar donated to us from Alter Bridge. We had some Megadeth drum heads. I'm putting up. We have a pedal from Steel Panther, like a little distortion effects pedal thing that Steel Panther donated. I'm putting up one of my Jackson guitars, one of my basses that I'm going to be putting up there this week. So we've always kind of got stuff going. Because the other thing that I realize is that a lot of our friends are out of work. A lot of obviously the big rock stars, but also a lot of musicians are sidemen musicians. So when tours and recording dates get canceled or postponed, they're out of work too. And we work in a little bit of a different industry. Not everybody is or required to be a union member, so we don't necessarily have some of the furlough and union and some of these type of things around a lot of the touring musicians in rock and roll. So when things cancel, they're just out of work. So through our foundation, we've found a method now whereby we can employ some people to be on the payroll, actually giving these lessons, since we have so many students now around the world.
Outstanding. Well, Dave, with what's going on now, nobody ever thought we'd ever see something like this. And I know with the technology age and the internet, which I didn't grow up with at all. I mean, the whole thing of sitting and watching concerts seeing artists just do acoustic things in their living room or in their garage, or do you find yourself sitting down and watching a lot of those? Like I know I do.
I do, and look, I think it plays to a few things. Number one, we're artists. We want to create. We're performers. We want to perform. And there's just an innate thing built into us where our community. One of our gifts is a song, and if we can perform that for other people and it makes them feel better, it sort of takes them out of a moment that may not be so pleasant, being locked down, maybe feeling a little helpless right now. That's the power of music, as we know. We both work with music every day, and you have your listeners, I have my fans, And most importantly, you and I are both fans ourselves, and that's how we got into this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all of us are fans of some type of music. So the fact that the community is finding these new, inventive ways to be visible, it's good for us, because I found when we started the Schools Out initiative way back in mid-March, right as this was all starting to go down around the world with these closures and quarantines and stuff, I found that when I was busy working toward let's call it just a charitable mindset of how can I help other people, it immediately pulled me out of myself. And I wasn't sitting around in any kind of self-pity or wallowing or going, woe is me, and what about my life, and what about my tours, and mine. You know, when one little letter changed at the beginning of a word, you know, when it goes from me to we, suddenly your life can change.
That's outstanding. You know, and Dave, it's not like we all know, anybody who's a fan of Megadeth knows that you don't sit idle very long. I mean, you're an author, you've got the coffee, you've got Megadeth, you've got the Ellefson Band. I mean, you always seem pretty busy.
I am, and you know, I learned something years ago. You know, for almost 20 years, of course, Dave and I founded Megadeth in 1983. So it's coming up on almost 37 years of Megadeth this year. Next month it'll be 37 years. And you know, we're singular focus. You have to be in order to do what we did and just build the band the way we did. And then in 2002, Dave had to step away from it for a bit, and essentially the group disbanded, and I just sat there. And it's that day that I think every musician fears is, we've got a great thing going, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I've got all my eggs in this one basket, gosh, what if something happens, you know, and it ends. And one day it did. And I got to say, I wasn't totally prepared for it, and that was, you know, shame on me. And I was working towards some other things. I was producing, and I was trying to, you know, find some other outlets. But suddenly in that season, my good friend Al Petrelli, who was playing guitar in Megadeth at that time and is now musical director for the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, you know, he told me, he goes, listen, my experience with this is you just start saying yes. You just say yes to everything. And once in a while you get double booked and get in a bind, but better to be overbooked than underbooked. And I started to apply that, and it took me a little time. You know, 2002 was a very different year for me, to sort of be a man without a country, a man without a home, if you will, with Megadeth, you know, gone at that point. But I landed I started doing some artist relations for a big musical instrument company called Petey, based down in Mississippi. And that immediately networked me in. And again, it wasn't about, you know, hey, everybody show up and serve me because I'm a rock star. It was more about, hey, let's use this rock star celebrity that I've been gifted with from Megadeth, and let me use this as a way to go out and help other people get in this game and get things going. And some of my earliest clients were Slipknot, Nickelback, you know, some of the musicians from Kid Rock's band. I mean, because they were just getting things fired up. Like, their careers were just taking off. And, you know, they looked to me like, oh my gosh, it's the guy from Megadeth on the phone, you know, and I was coming to them with a servant's heart rather than, you know, everyone's, you know, coming to me to serve me. And that was a shift. And I was in my probably mid to almost late 30s at that point. So I guess I was a little more grown up. I had young kids. I had a family to support. So I took a very different view of it. But that season of my life, for probably the next 7-8 years, there really changed the arc of everything that I'm doing today. It got me thinking about things other than just music related always, but things other than just always having a bass in my hand. And I like it. I like having a very wide, varied life. I would not want to be just the bass player in Megadeth at this age of my life. I think that's, you know, I like that I can do that as sort of obviously the centerpiece, but around it I get to sort of enjoy all these other endeavors that I get to be a part of as well.
Now, I know, Dave, your Ellefson Band just released a new song. I just heard it on Monday called Simple Truth, and I love it. I'm going to tell you that. I just love that tune.
Thank you.
How does the Ellefson Band differ from other solo projects you've been involved with?
Well, I think, you know, when I sit down and I write, when I'm always writing, and I mean, like, I can just be, you know, I've been riding my bicycle, as we were talking before we came on the interview, right? I've been out riding my bicycle because here in Arizona we can still social distance and be outside a little bit. And, sometimes it's when I'm out hosing down the back patio with the water hose, or I'm out biking, or I'm sweeping the garage up. Those are these kind of meditative, repetitive moments, where I'm not really thinking about the task I'm doing, so my brain starts